So, welcome our YouTube followings. Heads up, this is our last video, not on about this. So we're gonna give you guys the recap. We are now going to be called the Sons of Queens. Every video going forward after this one, because this is your constructive notice, will be in our the Sons of Queens YouTube channel, following the same monk here. So without further ado, let's introduce you to Star Wars: The Mandalorian, Season 2, Episode 5, Chapter.
Chapter 13, entitled Thank You God, the Jedi. And that's actually just the Jedi. The Thank You God was for myself because it was a very, very rewarding episode as a Star Wars fan. Very rewarding.
It was crazy. Like this one, you were right. You freaking texted me. You were like, "Yo, you gotta watch this." Don't Google this. Like, you gotta watch it. I was like, dude, I'll get to it. Just give me some time. I'll get to it. It's 5 a.m. in the morning. I'll get to it. Let me sleep. But dude, I watched the first like 5 minutes of it, and I was like, oh my God. Then I crashed. Then I finished the rest of it the next day, and I was like, oh my. That was something.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking we would go through the general story recap like we usually do, but I think for the purpose of this episode, I mean, there's just
so much.
There's so much lore and so many things happening that almost the plot takes a backseat. So, all right, let's go over the plot very quickly, which is going to be hard to do because, like, every time something happens in the plot, it's going to be like, oh my God, that happened. Okay, so the episode of Chapter 13, The Jedi, produced and directed by Dave Filoni. Thank you, Dave Filoni. We love you, Dave. We start out at the planet Corvus, where Mandalorian was told that Ahsoka Tano is located. And the very first thing we see is a magistrate defending her temple. And she defends it by sending some guards out to a burned down forest. And then pretty much soon after that, we see those guards being taken out systematically, predator-like, by Ahsoka, who is a Tortugan. That's the name for a species.
They shortened her hair.
Yeah, they did a little bit. So Ahsoka wants some information from the magistrate, which is played by Bruce Lee's goddaughter. Her name escapes me, forgive me. But yeah, so we know that Ahsoka is seeking information, and the magistrate is like, oh, how much lives is this information worth to you? And she has like a prisoner there that she's about to kill. And Ahsoka is like, I'll come back in 1 day. You have 1 day to decide, and I'll come back. So Ahsoka goes back to the forest, and meanwhile, Mando lands. Mando goes to the city, because that's where he gets a tracking beacon from the, not a tracking beacon, what is it? Like a transponder, basically. Right. Like if you're in Star Wars, if you're a city and you want to be discovered, you send something into outer space to let people know, hey, we have a spaceport here, or you could come do commerce here or whatever. But whatever. So he lands on Corvus. He goes to the same place, to the magistrate, and he says, I'm a bounty hunter and I'm looking for shelter here. They let him in. And then the magistrate wants to talk to him personally. And the magistrate herself brings up Ahsoka Tano, and she's like, I see You're a Mandalorian. You're an ancient enemy of the Jedi. I seek to capture Ahsoka Tano. I have a bounty for you. And she offers him as a reward a pure Beskar spear, which was awesome. And she sends him. And he says, okay, because this is like cool for Mando. He's like, okay, I was here to find Ahsoka Tano anyway. Now these people are going to help me. So they pretty much give him a general location.
Smart.
They give him a general location of where Ahsoka is. He goes there. He finds her. They have a short fight, which we'll get into more in depth. And then Mando is like, hold on, Bo-Katan sent me. You're Ahsoka Tano. And she's like, oh, she sent you? I hope it's to talk about that little guy. And she points to that little guy, and that little guy is, we find out in the very next scene, his name is
Grogu.
Grogu. All right, we'll talk about thoughts later. I'll just finish the recap. Okay, so the very next scene is actually a very beautiful scene. It's Baby Yoda and Ahsoka meditating by the moonlight, or conversing by the moonlight using the Force. She's able to feel his thoughts, and he's able to feel her thoughts. So he's telling her his history, which we'll also get into in a bit. And Mando says, you know, can you train him? And she says, well, you know, he looks up to you like a father. He's formed an attachment to you. These things are bad for a Jedi. It leads them to go down to the dark side. We'll talk about all that later. So then pretty much Mando says, you know, they sent me here to kill you. Ahsoka is, and then he said, well, I didn't agree to anything. And then Ahsoka is like, all right, if you agree to help me take out the magistrate, then I'll train Baby Yoda. So they go, and basically they just wipe out the entire force of the village. The magistrate's force is like pretty easy. I mean, there was no fight back whatsoever.
Not really, no.
Ahsoka defeats the magistrate, or has her in like the position of lightsaber to the throat, and she tells her, tell me the location of your master. Tell me the location of Grand Admiral Thrawn.
Right.
Another huge thing. And then, so they liberate the village, which is cool to see. And they go back to Mando's ship. And then Mando's like, oh, let me say goodbye to Baby Yoda. And that I actually almost started crying when like he was there holding Baby Yoda, about to say goodbye to him.
That was intense. That was an intense moment. I was like, the Mandalorian has ended. That was it. Well, it's funny. It's called the Mandalorian, not Grogu.
Exactly. It's not the Mandalorian and Baby Yoda. So they, so Mando takes Baby Yoda to Ahsoka, and Ahsoka is like, no, I really can't train him. And he's like, we had a deal, you know? And she says, okay, there's another way. Take him to the planet Tython. There's an ancient Jedi temple there. Put him on top of the temple where there's a seeing stone, and he can, there the Force will surround him, and he will choose his own way. And then she says it's possible that any existing Jedi in the universe will be able to sense his presence when he's on that top of that throne in Tython. That's pretty much the plot summary, but wow. So first thing is, Ahsoka, what do you think?
That it looks a lot older than the cartoon, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I was expecting like a little kid, almost. It was like a very mature fighter, but then again, I haven't followed up that one, right? The dual wielding, the action, the Force, I felt like it was more tame, because
Sorry, more what?
I feel like the fighting was more tame, because because like it's not like they're hacking up people, right? Like she could have hacked everyone up with but they only hack up robots because they want to keep it as accessible to a younger audience as much as possible. So I understand the artistic element to it. Fight scenes and stuff, much less intense than I would imagine. Like I would imagine, like, remember Star Wars Episode 2 when Yoda was just jumping around with the lightsabers?
Yeah.
I was expecting something like that, because they're all really trained, but it was very, very tame.
So the choreography is not as complex as
not at
you
all.
would expect.
Not at all. Not at all.
I wonder why that is.
I wonder why too, because like I liked it, and then like for example, like when the guy Ahsoka, like there's just so much like Mando's really smart. He goes in. I wasn't expecting any of this, right? And it's like, okay, go find Ahsoka. So he tricks them almost to telling him the general direction of where Ahsoka is. Finds Ahsoka, is like, okay, I guess we're doing this commando esque invasion, right? And then they go in, and then
Well,
they're like,
Ahsoka pretty much gets the drop on him.
yeah, but that was the other thing. Like, I was for the first time because what's with the white lightsaber? Is there something special with the fact that it's a white lightsaber?
Yeah. So, um, have we ever discussed how a red lightsaber is created?
I think it's like a bleeding, crying kyber crystal, right?
Yeah. So basically, how a Sith creates a red lightsaber is they have to kill a Jedi. They have to take their lightsaber. They have to take
Right.
out the kyber crystal, which in its way is a living thing. It's very strong in the Force. It's connected to the
Right.
Force. So they pour dark side energy into it to make it quote unquote bleed and make it red. They make it, go through a lot of pain is like the implication there.
Right.
And it turns red. So Ahsoka did the opposite in the novel entitled, surprisingly, Ahsoka.
Right.
She defeated one of the Inquisitors, which is you remember Fallen Order, the like the second sister, the character with the red lightsaber. So anyway, Ahsoka defeats a bad guy,
Right.
not a Sith, but like a Sith associated person.
Right.
And during the battle, she takes that person's lightsaber crystals, which are red,
Okay.
and she does the opposite of the bleeding process. She purifies it, so she pours straight positive energy into it, like light side energy into it,
And
and
it's a white.
it ends up white, well, colorless, really, I guess. Yeah,
So
yeah, because it couldn't be a clear lightsaber, I guess, right?
right.
Yeah, so it's pretty much, yeah, white, colorless, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, that's how she got the white lightsaber crystals. So do you think maybe, because I know in the prequels, when they were doing the fighting scenes, they had a lot of time to train for it.
Right.
Like Hayden Christensen and Ewan McGregor.
Mm-hmm.
Like they had a lot of training. Bless you. They had a lot of training, and maybe I'm thinking Rosario Dawson didn't get as much training time. That's why it didn't look that good.
Like the fight scenes were utterly like slow and very non like it wasn't I didn't imagine that to be like in any circumstance any real fight.
So that's not what
Like,
you were expecting from a fully trained Jedi Knight.
yeah, like the Jedi Knight or like the fact that she had like a Beskar shield, and like at one moment where Ahsoka had like the lightsaber, right? And then like the two, and it was like holding the staff with just one. I was like, you could just chop off her fingers holding the Beskar. There's no guard or anything. So I was
Yeah,
like to myself, I'm like, there's so much vulnerabilities. There's so much like didn't like it at all. Like in
wow.
terms of like the intensity, like that fight, like minus that fight, really liked it, but that fight really threw me off because I was expecting something a lot more, I guess, um, showing of their physical prowess, so to speak. Like this is a you see the cartoons, you see anything like she's a fighter. She's not
Yeah. Well, we can't compare it to the cartoon because in the cartoon you could have like one frame of her flipping around from place to place.
right.
But if you do compare it to the prequel trilogy, the lightsaber combat does leave a lot to be desired. And I actually felt that way too, but just with all the other stuff going on in the episode that I was
Yeah,
gushing
but
over.
there's a lot redeeming it. So
Yeah.
so all that particular technicality aside, I love, it was like a slave thing. They're going in, I'm like, free the slaves because they're prisoners, right? So there was just so much there. Like so like he develops an attachment and then he's like, here's the little handle thing that you like, right? So forget the rock, just take this little handle thing. And so Grogu actually has force power still. And we
Whoa,
learned that
whoa, let's back up. Let's back up. What do you think of the name?
just could have just called him Jeff. I'm like, what the hell is this? It's such a crappy name. Like Baby Yoda would have been better, but like for of all the names they picked, it was such a docile, like muddled, like it's like. But I guess it sounds like something you'd give a 50-year-old human being, old person. That's what you call them, you know?
Well, I'm sure people weren't thrilled the first time they heard the name Yoda,
Right.
but now it's legendary.
Well, that is true. So you probably give it that, right?
I
That,
think if you give it time, it'll grow on us. But I
yeah.
agree, I wasn't thrilled about the name initially either.
So it'll probably go up, I would imagine. Like I would imagine it's bound to like raise up. Like at some point it'll grow on us.
I
Hopefully.
think so. I think so.
Like
Grogu.
it
Grogu.
it's bound to happen.
What if they just remove the R? Would Gogu that'd be cuter, I think.
Yeah, but I don't think they're really going for cute because like at this point we find out that he was actually training in the Jedi Academy.
Yes, and I wrote down basically every piece of information we find out. So basically, yeah, Ahsoka is communing with Grogu via the Force, so they're able to read each other's thoughts. And
Yeah, because he can't talk, but they can read. They all have mind reading abilities apparently.
yeah, so okay, she gives us a bit of the history of Grogu. So Grogu tells her his backstory, and he tells her. So she's relaying this to Mando, and she says he was raised on the Jedi Temple in Coruscant,
Right.
and actually, I did the math, and he's the exact same age as Anakin Skywalker. So he was born in the same year as Anakin Skywalker / Darth Vader. That's just a side note. So raised in the Jedi Temple, it does not say born in the Jedi Temple, it says raised in the Jedi Temple. He had many masters that trained him there.
Right.
When the Empire rose to power, he was hidden. Someone took him from the temple. Then his memory becomes dark. He seemed lost and alone. He learned to hide his abilities to survive over the years. And then she talks about his attachment. His attachment to you makes him vulnerable to his fears, to his anger. I've seen what feelings can do to I've seen what such feelings can do to a fully trained Jedi Knight, to the best of us. I will not start this child down that path. So there's a lot there to digest.
There's a lot to digest there. It's a lot because it's.
So he was on the Jedi Temple in Coruscant for the first 23 years of his life.
Right.
That's how old Anakin was when the Empire took over.
So in all reality, Grogu has been through a lot.
Yeah, that's one of the things is that he's experiencing some level of trauma, I think.
He could have been trained by Yoda for all we know.
Yeah, she says he was trained by several masters. What do you think of him being
Several
the offspring of Yoda? Yeah.
Like that's several and masters. There's a master level. That's not a joke. You know?
But here's the thing. She was being trained in the same Jedi Temple at the same time he was, and she did not know of him.
So are they just doing it different world?
No. She was on that same world, Coruscant.
So, but she didn't know him.
Yeah, but she didn't know him. So for whatever reason, Grogu was being kept separate from the rest of the younglings there at the temple. It seems that way. At least that's the inference that we can make.
Do you know why though?
No, that's a total mystery. We can discuss why. Maybe that species is so rare and so powerful that they had to keep him away from the other kids.
Otherwise, he'll force choke them all to death.
Yeah, he could just be like, he could go on a temper tantrum and just like wipe out the
Which
whole
is
room.
which is actually funny because like what we do is we see him have abilities, right? But it seems like he's been losing touch with them, or he's been hiding them, so he's not as fluent with those abilities as he probably was before.
Mhm.
And that's a pretty interesting concept because like that I was not expecting all of that to happen in this episode. There's a lot that happened in this freaking episode. Like
Yeah, it's more about revelation than it is plot.
I would imagine so. Like that pure Beskar, we learned more about the armor. So pure Beskar is apparently
They could
lightsaber.
straight up defend lightsaber brawls. So let's go into the fight when they were first fighting. Ahsoka gets the drop on him. He turns around and he's able to block lightsabers. Not, I thought Beskar was only able to deflect lightsaber blows, but
No,
he did straight up. He straight up blocked the lightsabers with his Beskar gauntlets.
that was
He
crazy.
did a he did a quick move. He turned around. He hit her with her flamethrower. She jumped back, and when she was exposed for a second, he hit her with the grappling hook. The rope ran around her. He was able to tie her up in a tree, like grapple her up in a tree, like
Right.
tied up like this. But she did a reversal and had him come down the other side and like slammed him. And then he was like, "Whoa, whoa, all right, enough. You're Ahsoka Tano, Bo-Katan sent me." It was almost like a moment when like it was like two siblings fighting, and like a younger one or a smaller one was like, "Okay, enough. That's enough. You went too far."
That was one of those like, please chill the hell out
Yeah,
moments.
yeah. Mando knew and you could tell in his voice he was like, "Please, like Ahsoka Tano, Bo-Katan sent me." You
It's
know,
like relax, like we're all in the same team here. Like what the hell?
yeah. And that's probably the most distressed I've heard Mando actually sound in his voice.
Yeah, I was surprised because I was like not expecting that at all. Because he is very, very calm at that
Yeah.
moment for what it was. Like Mando has proven himself to be a very capable warrior.
Mm-hmm.
And
I mean, just the fact that he lasted 10 seconds with the Jedi Knight shows that he's
you think
really
he could have beaten her in a fight?
no. The reason he started yelling Ahsoka Tano stop is because he knew he was losing. He was about to get killed, like no doubt about it. Yeah.
Like if it dragged on, he would be done for, right? Like
Oh
if
yeah,
she used
for
like
sure.
force powers, and that's what I didn't understand is that like when she was doing that fight with the magistrate, right, with the Beskar spear, she could have just used force powers to like lift her like 10,000 feet in the air and drop her.
But I
But
think she was playing with her most of the time
I think
because she
Ahsoka Tano
wanted.
was just toying with her, right?
Yeah, exactly. She wanted that information, so she needed her alive and unharmed. Which I kind of think is the reason she let her lightsaber get thrown into the pond to give the magistrate a sense of.
She threw the fight basically.
She pretended to throw the fight to give the magistrate a false sense of security and put her in a position where Ahsoka was just like, bam, bam, lightsaber to the face. Tell me what I want to know.
Yeah. So let's just establish that she could have killed her basically stupid early if she really wanted to.
Yeah, that's not an issue. Yeah.
Yeah. So she got the information, right?
Yep.
And she's off to
And
a
she wanted to know about Grand Animal Thrawn, which is crazy that they brought this into the series.
Who's that?
He's the blue guy from Rebels, from Star Wars Rebels. He's a fan favorite from the old EU that was incorporated into the new canon. He's basically the Emperor's right-hand man.
That's crazy.
So remember Grand Moff Tarkin from the original Star Wars, the original?
Okay.
The old gray-haired dude
Right.
who was like, you could tell he was almost like on the level of Darth Vader in terms of military ranking.
Right.
So there was one more person like that in the Empire, and that other person was Grand Admiral Thrawn.
Right.
And it would take a whole Rebels recap to tell his story and what goes on with him, but basically, he's alive and he has one of Ahsoka Tano's friends, we think.
That 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 was actually crazy. Like that was crazy. They
Well, let's go back to the meditation. Can we go back to meditation for a little bit?
were right. So
All
they
right.
had this meditation moment where she's with baby Grogu, and they're
Come on, don't say that begrudgingly. You can give it a little love. Grogu. Dude, you're into anime. Come on. Grogu should be like right up your alley.
I know.
It's almost Goku, for Christ's sakes.
That could be doable, right? So
if they called him Goku, people would have. What do you think? People would have done.
I mean, they don't want to infringe on copyright, right? Disney's gonna buy up Dragon Ball Z later on at this point. Like,
but that would be a better name, I think. Goku.
Call him Goku. It's gonna be. I mean, if Disney buys up DBZ, I'm gonna be like, it's been real, you know.
I think the R ruins it. If it was Goku, it'd be a lot better.
You think?
Yeah, just something about the R is really what throws it off. Like Goku, that sounds like almost a sound that a baby would make. Goku, Goku.
That would be insane. So right now.
Okay, so we learned he was raised on a Jedi temple.
Right.
But Ahsoka didn't know him, even though she was raised in the same temple. So he was in some way hidden, trained by several masters. And one theory that I have is that his species is so special that it's like born with so much force powers that they actually need to tame it in its own place alone before they're able to expose it to others. And do you think the fact that Yoda most likely, well, Yoda was in the temple at the same time Grogu was being raised there, do you think that leaves open the possibility that Grogu is somehow related to Yoda?
I think it's entirely possible because there's so few of those species that it would be very unlikely that they're not related. They're just so few that they don't know each other. It's not like the human race where I would imagine you have billions of people and they're all parts of the world, right? I would imagine that this race is so rare that I would be surprised, genuinely surprised, if they didn't have some sort of connection.
And now there's two ways that could happen. Remember Yaddle from episode 1?
Yeah.
The female Yoda.
There you go. Maybe Yoda's a pimp. Who knows?
So they could have maybe allowed them to copulate because, like you said, the species is so rare. Because remember, in those days, a Jedi was forbidden from sexual relations.
You know what would be funny if Yoda broke that rule, and then that's like the secret, and that's why he was raised.
Oh, whoa! That's actually an interesting theory. So what Yoda broke the rule in secret, and that's why they had to hide Grogu.
Yeah, but he still had to train him, right? Because it's his kid. Because I keep forgetting that he's been through a lot. Like, he's been through the Darth Vader. He's been through the Rebel War. He's been through everything. Like, he's been.
Well, we know he was taken away from the Jedi Temple. As the exact words are, when Empire rose to power, he was hidden. Someone took him from the temple. She said someone, specifically someone. So, okay, now when the Empire rose to power, we all remember that famous scene of Anakin marching into the Jedi Temple on Coruscant. That's the temple she's talking about. he goes in there and he slaughters the little kids, the younglings.
Yeah.
So Grogu, this is the implication here was that Grogu was at the temple at that time.
And he wasn't slaughtered with the other kids.
Well, no, he definitely wasn't slaughtered live, right?
Right.
But exactly how was he saved? When was he saved? And by whom was he saved? Those are the three main questions.
There's a lot of directions that this could go, because this season has been nothing but like, whoa, right? Because they're going to tie everything in. They're going to expand the worlds. And I'm going to call this now. They're going to tie this to Fallen Order. I'm calling it right now. When Fallen Order does like they're working on part 2 because it's so well done. They're going to tie all this. You're going to see Cal in this. Or dun dun dun, Cal saved Baby Yoda for all you know.
Yeah, I mean, Cal is still out there for all we know.
Yeah, so I'm just really thankful that this series has completely sidetracked from the Star Walker saga. Like, Ahsoka Tano is not a character from the main movies.
But at the same time, I think this episode shows it more integrated into the saga, because they talk about Coruscant, they talk about Grand Admiral Thrawn. So basically, the reason, like, I texted you, like, this episode changes everything.
It does change everything.
Is it's becoming more part of the mainstream lore. I mean, at this point, we have a direct tie between Grogu and the Republic Jedi, the prequels.
But what?
Like, she was straight up talking about the prequels.
But how about the slave town? Like, how did that come to be?
The what?
The prisoners, the captives. How did that come to be?
Okay, so the magistrate worked with the Empire, or is still working with the Empire, to basically locate worlds that have a lot of natural resources, but that are also vulnerable to plundering. And she gives those to the Empire. So the theory is here that wherever she's been working, she's been giving the resources of that planet to Grand Admiral Thrawn. And you can see the planet is completely, like, decimated. The forests are all burnt up. There's smoke everywhere.
No, that's why I was like that. It's desolate.
Yeah.
Well, so Bo-Katan was basically just there for the sake of like exploring it.
I mean, it's all open now. So, like you said, they could bring in Cal Kestis and Bo-Katan. I think Bo-Katan is going to come back in the series because she's after Moff Gideon, and Moff Gideon is after Mando. So I think towards the climax of the series, those three factions are kind of going to meet up. Maybe the last battle will be on Python, because we got 3 episodes left.
But then there's also a season 3.
Yeah.
So
but you figure he's going to make it to Tython. That'll be at least 1 episode, right? And then we'll have 2 episodes left after that. So I'm thinking the rest of the season is just going to go down on Tython, because the last 2 episodes will probably be expanded in terms of action and in terms of storytelling. And it'll be weird to go to like another planet in addition to all there.
No, that's going to be crazy. So what happened is that they're going to do whatchamacallit. So because there's just so much there. Like the whole world just opened up. Like Pandora's
exactly. And the reason I told you like this changes everything is that another big possibility now is that the Jedi that will discover him is Luke Skywalker. He's the most powerful.
You broke my brain.
He's the most powerful Jedi alive at this time. So if anyone would discover him, it would be...
Because this is the time where the majority of the Jedis were already slaughtered. There's no more Jedi Order.
Yeah. There's no order.
But then that doesn't make sense. Like, why would she not train the kid if there's no order, right? It's not like she has to...
Yeah. So, well, first of all, she has her own issues with the order. But besides that, so she talks about attachment, and this goes into the kind of psychological aspects of the prequel trilogy. So you know how they talk about attachment in childhood raising theories, like different types of attachment styles. Have you ever heard of
Right.
this? So basically, from the Jedi point of view, like every type of attachment style is unhealthy. So when they talk about unattached attachment, they mean unhealthy attachment. And basically, what happened was when they took Anakin into training, he was already 10 years old.
But baby, ugh, fucking Grogu was like a kid, and he was doing this. He was like 40 years old in kid years, right? He's the majority of his life he's been in like some sort of training as a very young person. Like he's a lot more mature now. So like Anakin, he didn't start off as a Jedi in training as a baby. Grogu basically started as a baby until being like a almost right before he hits their version of puberty. So,
No, I don't think he's anywhere near puberty. I
but
think he's still pretty much like he's probably maybe like going into being a toddler at this point.
he's been trained way earlier than Anakin was being trained.
Yeah, but as an infant. And so, all right, so let me finish the theory about the attachment thing real quick before we go back there. So when they took Anakin in, there was a big hesitancy in the Jedi Council of whether to train him because he was old and he had a very strong attachment to his mother.
Right.
He was afraid to lose her. And then remember, he had those dreams, and eventually, like, he did lose her. She was murdered. And then that same attachment bled over into his attachment to Padme when they fell in love. It, like, you know, in every relationship, there's like attachment versus, like, what's that old saying? If somebody really loves you, let them go. If they come back, then they'll really love
I
you.
don't remember this saying.
You don't remember that saying?
I don't remember that saying, and I don't think that's age appropriate for our audience.
What? What did I say? I'm trying to teach these kids about healthy relationships.
Exactly. So
The saying, like, between, like, in every relationship, you have like a balance between, like, I want, you know, my own desires, and then the desires of this person, and the desires for us together.
right.
So obviously, Anakin had a lot more of the first, which is the desires for me. So much so that he was willing to betray the Jedi Order, join
Right.
Palpatine, kill a bunch of children, and
That's just
become.
some crazy. Like I don't think that. I'm thankful that the movies were made in the 1970s because that was a crazy roller coaster ride.
Yeah.
Like if you think about it, it's like and this really didn't blow my mind until they made episode 1, 2, and 3, right? When you saw the episode 3, and I was like, man, that's a lot of roid rage. I'm just gonna go and take this lightsaber and start butchering kids, right? I'm like, man,
And the reason he did that because he was so obsessed with saving Padme from death.
but he failed.
Yeah, he failed. Ironically, he failed because he became evil. Remember, he choked her, and then plus she was so shocked that he turned that I think she pretty much
Gave
died
up.
from died from trauma,
That's
or
sad.
died from the shock of everything.
It's kind of sad.
But so basically, Ahsoka Tano is like, I'm not, and Ahsoka Tano was Anakin's Padawan. She was Anakin's apprentice. So she saw what happened to Anakin attachment, and she's like, this kid has an attachment to you. If I've seen what happens to the best of us, which is her quote, and that means she saw what happened to Anakin, and she saw how dangerous attachment can be when a Jedi is possessed with it, which is why she feels it's too dangerous to train Grogu, because now that Grogu has an attachment to Mando,
Mm-hmm.
he's capable of having attachments to different things. So he's capable of going down that same path where if he's afraid to lose something or someone, he's vulnerable of turning to the dark side in order to protect that something or someone.
That's actually evident in Mando and the kid's relationship, right? Where the kid Grogu force pushes the beast out of the way, right? So force protects the force, number one. Two, how many force users do you know actually choke people with the force?
It's very true, and that's dark side related power.
So
And he did it just when they were arm wrestling. Like,
yeah, like, and this wasn't even a like what do you call it, provoked thing. This was just like,
exactly, yeah. That
I
I
have
was
this
shocked when that
power.
happened. I don't know why.
So as far as we know, it's a really dark side.
He has, yeah, the potential is surely there. I mean, if Ahsoka watched season one,
But that's the thing. Like, is the force choke something that a regular Jedi force user can do?
yeah, Luke did it in Return of the Jedi, but he wasn't still fully a Jedi because he hadn't confronted Vader the second time yet. So he
Okay,
was
that's
veering between dark and light at the same time. But yeah, choking someone is usually associated with
dark
uh,
side.
yeah.
Yeah, because it's like that ends all fights. Like literally, anyone that isn't resistant to the force or can fight back, that's a game over.
Yes.
So as far as we know, Grogu already turned dark side, right? But and also Ahsoka Tano has been through a lot of trauma herself too. Like they they know what happened, right? Like they have firsthand experience of, yep, this is what happens when you take someone that's dark side or whatever and has attachment. So they have to be on guard too.
Yeah, and I feel like if Ahsoka watched season one, she'd definitely be like, "No, I'm not training this kid."
I'm not even going to humor the idea of sending him to get, because at the end of it, she sends him to some place. I don't even what kind of place. We're talking about, like the tree, the
Yeah.
jungle place.
So what? Well, first of all, why do you think she makes that decision? If
Well,
she's like, "Well,
why
this
she
kid
change her
can't,"
mind?
yeah. So I'm thinking it's this kind of thing. Like, all right, it's not up to me to decide. Let me let the Force decide the best way I know how, which is sending him over there to that temple. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I think that's kind of her rationale.
yeah.
But then again, like we just talked about, if she would have seen what Grogu did in season one, I think she might have, like, I don't know, had second thoughts about it. Like you said, not even send him over there to Tython.
That's a scary thing, though. Like, if you want to be real, that's a scary thing. That's like no joke.
Yeah, imagine fully grown Yoda, but evil. It's
That would be
horrifying.
something. Because the thing is that, like, it's hard for me not to think about the fact that episode 7, 8, and 9 didn't include any of these characters.
Well, I think they're going to bridge the gap here
What do you
somehow.
mean? Send them all to an alternate dimension, Christmas style.
No, I think we might even get like a appearance from a young Kylo Ren. I don't think that's off the table at this point.
Did all these characters die before episode 7? I think
Um,
might be what happens.
well, actually, the Razor Crest, the ship from the Mandalorian, was in episode 9. Remember when all the people's fleet comes in?
Yeah.
Like all those spaceships? like people froze
Right.
that part of the movie and analyzed the frames, and the Razor Crest, meaning Mando's ship, was part of that fleet. So we know at least the ship is around.
Hmm.
Whether Mando himself was in there, I mean, he'd be pretty old by then, because that's 25 years into the future from where we are now in the Mandalorian. But yeah, it's possible. It's certainly possible. I mean, we saw Lando looking old as hell. You know.
That's true. Stranger things
Uh,
have happened, right?
yeah. But oh yeah, so Tython, as per your question, so in Legends, Tython is the original, is the place where the Jedi Order was originally formed. So species from across the galaxy who were super force sensitive were drawn there, and they studied the force, established different, rules, etc., etc. But in episode 7, we see that the first Jedi Temple is actually on Octu.
Okay.
So it seems like Tython is an early Jedi Temple here, but it wouldn't be the first.
No, that's going to be crazy because right now there's just normally I'm confident where I'm like, like before it was like, okay, we're going to meet Ahsoka Tano, right? Like X, Y, and Z is going to happen. Like we're pretty confident that at some point X, Y, and Z is going to happen. At this point, I don't know what the hell's going to happen.
Yeah,
I feel
that's
like
what I'm saying. It changed everything.
I was
Like
throwing,
literally,
yeah, being thrown in the void at this point because
Luke Skywalker could reach out.
I mean, right now, like they're going to this place. I mean, they could bump into Yoda for all I know,
Yeah. Well, Yoda
or
would
the
be a
ghost of
force ghost.
Yoda, or
Yeah.
the ghost of somebody at this point, because it's entirely possible.
And Kylo Ren is like a little kid at this point.
Because freaking Yoda showed up in ghost form in episode 8 or 9.
Eight, yeah.
8. So we could be seeing Ghost Yoda for all we know. And Mando and the Jedi, they're supposed to be enemies, but they're not. Like, what gives? Like he like is it that there's a priority system in the Mandalorian culture where it's like my word and then I hate Jedi's? Like, is that how it works?
Well, their beef is pretty much over because the Jedi are like almost extinct, and the Mandalorians have their own problems also. So Mandalore is being controlled by the Empire, and the Jedi have been eradicated. So they're dealing with their own things, which supersede any kind of
In other words,
ancient.
it's what you're saying is that it's no longer as clear cut as it used to be.
Yeah, for sure.
That's crazy.
Because Mando didn't even know what a Jedi was until the armorer told him about her.
That's true. No one knows anymore. Like, yeah, you think we're gonna run into Moff Gideon?
Yeah, I think that's gonna be the climax. I think it's gonna be Bo-Katan and her two peeps, her two Mandos that she was rolling with, or perhaps even more Mandos, versus Moff Gideon and Mando. And then what happens to Baby Yoda? I don't know. I mean, now we have to ask ourselves the question: will Baby Yoda always be a part of the series?
That's true. It's become very different now. Like, it's become different. I don't know. I don't know what to say. It's not the same anymore. I'm at a loss for words because you think we're running into Ahsoka Tano again?
Maybe not in this season though. I think what's going to happen is they're going to give her her own spin-off show.
They have to, right? At this point, there's
Yeah,
so many things.
Yeah, because I don't think you bring in a actress of Rosario Dawson's kind of, because she's pretty much a A-list. Would you say celebrity
If you want to put it that way, right?
or A minus? I
The-
don't. Yeah, I don't think you.
Everyone there is pretty much A-list celebrity.
Yeah, I don't think you bring in a big Hollywood name like that for one episode or even one part of a season. I think she's gonna get her own spin-off because there's no way they could throw in her whole side quest of Grand Moff Tarkin
Yeah.
and incorporate that into the Mando, unless that's the entire next season. But yeah, there's so many things that can happen. Destination Typhon. So you're calling that Jedi Fallen Order will be part?
I'm calling it because I feel like ever since Disney took over the Star Wars series, they they stopped treating it as a Skywalker saga. They started to treat it as a world. So I believe that as long as the public received it really well, they will incorporate it. Like no one expected the Fallen Order to do so well,
Mm-hmm.
and now here we are, right?
It's funny, pretty much the movies were the least well received things of the Disney era.
Yeah, and then now it's like, how long do you think Grogu is going to stick with Mando?
I mean, that's the ultimate. That's one of the questions. I mean, like you said, the show is called The Mandalorian. It's not called Mandalorian and Baby Yoda.
And the Beskar armor, I mean the spear, Mando's got a new weapon now.
Yes,
He's going to be
where
fighting Jedi. He's
no,
going to be fighting lightsabers.
he's going to be fighting Moff Gideon that has the dark saber.
He's going to be fighting the dark side soon. You think
Yeah,
the Mandalorians got resistance against Force users?
as long as Baby Yoda's by his side.
Because I think that's a pretty glaring weakness. Like, don't use a lightsaber, just use the Force, and you could kill him.
Yeah, I mean it's crazy. It's
You think we're going to see Moff Gideon next episode?
I think so. I think it's time for him to come back.
Because he was really out of the picture for a long time, and then you have some cameos of him, right?
Yeah, and we
And
know he's tracking the ship.
you think they're gonna find him on the next planet, their next pit stop?
I think that's yeah. I'm thinking they're gonna find him. Like I'm thinking Mando's gonna have his adventure on Typhon. Like there'll probably be like a side quest there where he has to fight a monster or goes through some kind of trial. And towards the end of that episode, Baby Yoda is gonna go finally to the top of that Jedi temple and have like whatever happens. Maybe Luke Skywalker, Ben Solo, Cal Kestis, who knows? Maybe Yoda will just totally flip out and turn to the dark side. And then as that's happening, Moff Gideon is also going to arrive
You know,
at the planet.
I think for the sake of merchandise sales, I don't think Baby Yoda is going dark side. Disney's making too many millions of dollars on Baby Yoda merch.
No, he could always come back.
I mean, they could temporarily throw him, right?
Yeah. Some people would be, oh, people would love like a dark side Baby Yoda.
That would be some crazy stuff.
That's like more merch to sell.
That's true. I mean, I went to the mall today, and all I found was like big Baby Yoda Funko Pops and like Mando Funko Pops and everything. I was like, this is a crazy thing. The people like actually the majority of people, they have Disney Plus only for Mandalorian.
Yeah, the what?
They're watching Disney Plus only for Mandalorian, really.
Yep, that's correct. I actually saw like a New York Post or no Daily News, one of the two daily newspapers here in beautiful New York where we're broadcasting from. They had like on the front it said your holiday entertainment guide,
All right.
and the biggest thing was the Mandalorian. Like he was the biggest character on there.
I mean,
It's the only thing going on. And
it's
Cobra Kai season 3.
which we will also be doing a cover for soon.
Yes. All right. So
Yeah,
going
I think,
into next week.
yeah, I think next week, really, it's an anything goes thing. I
Yeah.
think we could be introduced to everyone, or we could be introduced to. I don't think we're going to be introduced to nothing, because I think what they're doing is they're at this point it's like a huge one-upmanship from episode to episode.
It definitely. Yeah. Yeah.
There's a lot to cover.
Yeah. And they don't really have any episodes to spare since there's only 3 left in the series, in the season to kind of do a any kind of filler or any kind of sidetrack episode.
Yeah, I don't think they're gonna waste. I don't think that they're gonna waste it.
You know what I read today, or I saw it on YouTube. Somebody said this whole series is like a video game where basically your main goal is to deliver Baby Yoda to his final destination, but every episode is like a side quest in that main video game.
I
I thought
wouldn't
that
be
was
I wouldn't be surprised. I think that makes sense.
yeah. I think that's a really good analogy.
No, I think they need to have the villain, like a real villain, like a villain that can actually do some damage, be introduced. Because I feel like the villains that they had up to now are not really threatening.
Grand Admiral Thrawn is threatening.
Yeah, but like today's one where he just goes in and they both hack everyone up and they surrender the best card thing, and it's like I was like,
Yeah.
I
What?
need some like Death Star styled level threat.
Mhm. And like as a fan of like Asian influenced art, did you notice anything that was kind of did you feel like this episode had an Asian vibe? Because a lot of people are saying it had a samurai movie vibe.
Really,
Yeah. I mean, have you watched samurai movies?
I haven't really watched samurai movies,
Yeah, me neither.
but I feel like they're basically saying that it's like Space Cowboy.
No, they're saying have you heard the name Kurosawa?
No,
He's a famous Japanese movie maker that influenced George Lucas. And a lot of people are saying that Dave Filoni is calling back to George, or is calling back to Kurosawa.
really,
Yeah,
that's gonna be interesting. I mean, it's anything goes. Like, really, anything goes. I can't imagine. Um, I
if they
can't.
bring in if they bring in Luke, do you think they're gonna de-age Mark Hamill, or do you think they're gonna get a different actor?
They might do a Han Solo. They might do the Solo movie, like just different one entirely.
They better pick carefully because that could be a huge outrage if they pick someone.
Yeah, it's gonna be crazy. Like it's not. It, I I'm like speechless.
I mean, Luke is out there. He's the most powerful Jedi out there. If anyone's gonna sense him, it's gonna be him.
Yeah, if they want to do it that way. It's gonna be crazy. I mean, use the Force, Luke. You know. So yeah, I guess we're gonna recap with the audience and see what's gonna be like next week. Because who
Wow.
knows?
I definitely agree with you that next week is there's like no expectations. Everything's blown wide open. Anything could happen.
At this point, I honestly believe that that's going to be the case. Anything goes at this point. I don't believe I believe that there's too much potential.
There's so much potential. I mean, my God, it's crazy.
No, they're gonna do some crazy shit for sure.
But yeah, that's I think that pretty much does it for this episode.
Yeah, that's all we can say. All right, tune in next week as we have another discussion.
Peace out.